actually draw the line between who Hannah is as a person, the work that you do, the institution you do it for, and then the movements that you're connected to?
I really like telling people about my story, and I think just our personal stories have such weight, and we don't get to share them a lot in professional settings. I'm a first-born daughter. My mom immigrated here from Korea, so did my dad. They met here, and they worked really hard to try and build a life for me. And I think I like to touch on this because I think it's such a deep tie to me in the reproductive justice work. My mom only got married because she got pregnant with me. So it wasn't a decision, it wasn't a choice, but rather something she had no choice in but to have me, and she felt marriage was the best way forward, especially as an undocumented migrant, which I think is super relevant right now. And because of that, I have asked her, if you had more information about abortion and just access, would you have done that? And she's told me yes. And I think that's really powerful and something I hold a lot. And I think these circumstances really shaped where I come from, because that led to an abusive relationship my mom had to navigate. It led to us navigating domestic violence shelters and having to live through public housing and figuring out how to access public safety nets that right now are being crumbled to the ground. And I feel like we don't often get to tell people your true ties to the work that you're trying to be a part of and support and be in service to. And I think I carry that a lot in my work, namely really speaking and navigating power dynamics, like what institutions hold power, how can you navigate power in institutions that weren't made for you. My mom didn't speak English very well, so that was an early lesson for me in terms of, okay, I need to be able to understand power and how to move across spaces in service of my mom and my community. And I think that's why I feel particularly equipped to be in philanthropy and making sure folks who are most impacted by these issues that we talked about here, reproductive justice, but reproductive justice is so much more than just abortion. And being able to have that listening ear and heart when I'm approaching the work, I think it's one thing that I've really been almost shaped and forged to do. So I feel really lucky to be able to bring that here and into my role.
You said a really interesting sort of nexus between social movements and philanthropic institutions, and you get to see both of those really up close. And I'm really curious from your perspective about the gaps that exist between what movements and what philanthropy thinks is needed to make change happen, where there's alignment, and what happens when we have rub in between the two.
I think about this a lot, and I thought about it a lot, particularly when I was working in climate. I was doing a lot of like policy technical assistance work in my last role, working with movement folks directly on the type of policies they wanted to see. And a lot of the time that was counter to what traditional climate philanthropy would want, right? Ultimately, how we think about climate change is emissions in the air are bad. So we should do everything we can do to cut as many emissions as possible. So for instance, let's think about coal plants. we want to close all those down. They're bad for the environment. They're bad pollutants. Health-wise, it wreaks havoc on those nearby. But if we just close them down without a plan, who benefits and who is harmed? The working community, not just those that are direct workers of the coal plants, but the whole community surrounding on it that really relies on the coal plant for its economy. What happens? So when we were thinking actually about coal plant closures, it was more a workforce policy plan that we had to think about. How do you provide transition opportunities? How do you support community colleges in transitioning the workforce from coal plant folks to maybe wind, or maybe it's outdoor adventure or skills guides or things of that nature. And I feel like when you think of just the bottom line, you can have a perfect policy on paper on reducing carbon emissions. But if you lose the humanity, the people, and how it can further burden communities that have always historically been burdened, is that really the policies we should be pushing for? And I feel the same way thinking about feminist movements when we think about reproductive justice. You can't expect people to advocate for themselves and the systems that are harming them if they aren't getting their basic needs met. So I feel like there's also this opportunity we have to really listen to communities, especially now in this moment. What needs aren't being met? How can we be with them there in lockstep while thinking about the long-term vision of systems change? Because ultimately we know we have to meet these needs because the system is not working, but we have to do both, meeting the need while also thinking about rebuilding that system that our grantee partners and we all want in a shared vision of future.
So it's aligning on the how by listening to the folks who are most proximate to the issue on
Absolutely.
how to get there.
Yeah.